back to another video. In today's video, I am going to be discussing fibromyalgia and depression and how depression plays with fibromyalgia. And in this video, I am going to be talking about depression as a symptom of fibromyalgia and not as a diagnosis on its own, like clinical depression or anything like that. I am going to be discussing it as a symptom and not as like a cause or anything like that. So if you feel like you have depression and you also have fibromyalgia, but you feel like your depression is severe or that your symptoms take very long time to pass or don't pass at all, then it might be worth a shot to talk to an expert about that and maybe see if there is anything that they can do to help you. If you are new here and you would like to know more about fibromyalgia and how it is to live with fibromyalgia when you are a young person, then you can subscribe to my channel because I make videos every week about this topic. And also if you like Harry Potter and Disney and pandas. Obviously done some research on this topic, but I want to talk to you more about my experience with it than just spit out a bunch of research at you, because you can just go and look that up on your own. Depression and anxiety, but mostly depression as a symptom of fibro. So what does this mean? This means that if you have fibromyalgia, you may have depressive feelings the same way that you will have, knee pain or arm pain or whatever, and you will get certain pains that are constant and certain pains that are not constant. Depression can be like that as well. It's not something that is talked about all the time or not really openly talked about, and it's really interesting because it really shows that there's a lot of stigma associated with both fibromyalgia and depression on their own. But when you put those two together, it's even worse, right? Nobody's going to take you seriously because you're depressed and you have fibromyalgia. There's a lot of doctors who believe that fibromyalgia appears and is almost a manifestation of a depression or a traumatic event or a very stressful event in our lives. That is true for some people, and in some cases it's because people don't get treatment or they have an accident or something that is very traumatic. But for a lot of us, it just kind of shows up one day. It doesn't have to be the case. It can also be a physical trauma or a physical injury that causes your fibromyalgia that isn't necessarily associated with a mental state or an emotional state. But also I have this theory of how fibromyalgia may be something that you're born with and that gets triggered with time or in a certain situation. So I don't know, but that's just my theory. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, so I just talk to a lot of people with fibromyalgia. So like I've sort of figured out that a lot of us have had really strange symptoms like all our lives. Anyway, back to depression. Depression as a symptom of fibromyalgia is something that I never really understood very well until recently. So ever since my diagnosis, I've had these times of really depressive feelings. So I would feel really like overwhelmingly sad and have this like constant urge to cry over anything and everything, and I just felt like crying. And I had no will to do anything. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to shower. I didn't want to do anything, not even eat or even to get up to go pee. It was like a huge sacrifice. Honestly, at the beginning, thought it was related to the whole, huge change that is going from being a professional dancer to a person who barely can walk. So I felt like it was probably just all of that. And at the time I was still doing therapy, so I talked it through and all of that, and I tried to do things to like cheer myself up and make myself feel better and stuff. But it always felt so hard to like pinpoint why I was feeling sad. And sometimes it felt like this must be it. Like I would find myself thinking, but it must be this because there's nothing else. But then I would be like, yeah, but that thing isn't bothering me that much that I would feel this way. And personally, before fibro, I've always had a history of anxiety, which can lead to depression and depressive feelings, but it isn't a depression. I've always had anxiety and a high level of anxiety, and it's something that I dealt with through therapy. And at the time when I got sick, I was doing a lot better. I was doing very, very well with my therapy. And it just didn't really make sense for me to have depressive feelings when I wasn't even anxious. It would make sense for me to have those feelings if I was very, very anxious and I wasn't dealing with it. But that wasn't something that was happening. So it was very weird to me, but I kind of went with it and I thought, okay, this is just because I'm ill now and it's a really big life change, and sometimes I'm just gonna feel down about it. And I always tried to figure out what the reason, like what had triggered it. And then I had a flare-up of my depressive feelings earlier this year. And I found myself thinking, but why do I feel like this? I don't have any reason to feel like this. Something that somebody said to me was like, you know, it's just part of the illness. And it kind of like, I don't know why, but it kind of like sparked something in my brain and like connected two dots, which were everywhere you look, every time you go and research fibromyalgia, what is it, you know, what are the symptoms? Depression is always a symptom. And I always thought that they meant depression as in you can then become depressed, like clinically depressed because you are sick. I think it's the way they word it, depression. If they said depressive feelings or depressive flare-ups or bouts of depression, that is what I feel would make more sense in my personal experience. Because I realized that I'll be feeling fine, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I'm, you know, going on with my life, and then one day I wake up and I am depressed. Like, that is the best word to describe it, because I feel overwhelmingly sad. I don't feel like doing anything. I don't want to do anything. The things that I normally enjoy, I cannot find joy in. So things that normally would cheer me up, that's something that's logical, right? If you're feeling down, you'll do something that you like and it'll cheer you up. And that works for me when I'm actually feeling down about the illness. Like if I'm just a bit like bummed out because something didn't work out because I felt sick, or I couldn't go to an event because I was too ill to go and I was in too much pain and I couldn't make it. Like those things make me feel sad about being ill. But if I do something that I enjoy, it cheers me up. However, when I'm in these like depression flares, anything that I do just does not bring me joy. I try to do things to cheer me up or to like keep me busy, but I just cannot find joy in them. I don't feel happy. Since I've realized that it's just a symptom of the illness, just like sometimes I wake up and my arm isn't really working and there's like no strength in my arm and I just can't use my arm today. Just I wake up with that, and then a few days later or later that day or whenever, it'll go away. That's the same thing that happens with my depressive flares. So I will wake up one day and feel depressed and bad and sad and all of that stuff. And then normally a few days will go by and then I will feel better again. I woke up on Sunday feeling really down, really depressed, really bummed out, like really didn't want to do anything. I made it, you know, I made it through the day, and yesterday I started feeling a little bit better, and today I felt absolutely normal when I woke up. And like, why? Basically, they always go away, and then I go back to feeling like my normal self, which is this kind of cheery, sarcastic person. So these are a symptom. But why do they happen? That's kind of important, right? Or it seems important, but you know, prepare yourself, because whenever we're talking about anything about fibro, a likely answer is nobody knows. So, you know, just prepare yourself for that. Basically, nobody knows. It is known that people with fibromyalgia are about 3 times more likely to have depression and to have depressive feelings. A lot of people believe, like I said in the beginning, that fibromyalgia is caused by depression. However, that does not apply to everyone, just like everything with fibromyalgia. So, I've also read, and it makes sense to me and in my experience, depression is also a symptom of fibromyalgia. Because there is often people who, like me, were totally healthy before they had the illness and then became depressed. And it's generally agreed by doctors that it's totally possible that you weren't depressed before, but you will be now because of, you know, this whole fibromyalgia thing. When you have a chronic pain condition and something that affects your mobility, affects your cognitive processing, your memory, affects, you know, the way that you exist in the world, and it affects your relationship with pretty much everything, with work, with social interaction, with housework, with how much TV you can watch. Like, it affects your relationship with everything, with the world in general. And it affects the way that you experience stuff and experience the world. It's harder for us to have a lot of social interaction because it's very tiring, and it's very hard sometimes when you're feeling very foggy to have conversations. It's really hard work. Just the whole like thing, the limitations, the physical kind of aspect of it, the pain, all of that leads to isolation, leads to us spending less time out in the world. So it's normal that we may develop depressive feelings or a clinical depression after a diagnosis like this and experiencing chronic illness for a while. For some people, it might be worse than others. It really depends on your coping mechanisms and your general like mental health and your support system. The other reason that we might have depression that isn't just, you know, life sucks now, is that it may be a chemical or like actual physical thing that in your brain. So another reason for depression in general is a chemical imbalance, or you don't have enough serotonin, or you have like too much whatever. I don't know how it works. I'm not a doctor, but it is like a chemical interaction in your brain that isn't working properly. And because our illness is an illness of the central nervous system, basically our brain short circuits, right, and things go wrong. Anxiety and depression are both things that happen also, and they're also related to our central nervous system. Hence, if our central nervous system is defective, and depression and anxiety are both conditions that are affected by the central nervous system. Whatever the cause and effect is, but they are affected by it, and they are dependent on the, you know, their illnesses of the central nervous system as well. It just stands to reason that if our central nervous system doesn't work properly, one of the possible symptoms would be the symptoms of depression without the reason or like emotional thing of like nothing caused your depression, it was just your brain not working properly. So yeah, that's kind of what I meant. I don't know if that was really like, badly explained. I hope not. It can also be a combination of all of them. In my personal case, I feel like it's mostly just when I have depressive flares, it's mostly just my brain being stupid, because when I feel sad about the illness, it's not really the same kind of sadness, and it's not the same, I don't feel the same way. It's a very different sensation. And I always like feel like doing something about it, whereas when I'm depressed and having a depressive flare, I don't feel like doing anything about it. So that's kind of how I differentiate them. I have now been sick for about 2 years, and it has only been the last like few months, I don't know, maybe 6 months, that I've understood this kind of concept that is just my brain playing tricks on me, and that I've started working on kind of understanding that and why that happens and figuring out how to handle that. What can you do about it? You can try antidepressants and a medical approach. I personally am on antidepressants, not because of my depressive feelings, just because of other symptoms, but it kind of, the doctor was kind of like, well, it won't hurt your mood. So you can also do therapy. I really, really recommend therapy, because especially if you're at the beginning of a diagnosis and you're just like figuring this out, it can be really helpful to have somebody like help you through and help you kind of understand how to better explain to your family, or to ask for the right kind of help, or come to terms that you need help. It's just like really helpful. And I was already doing therapy before I got diagnosed, and I stayed with the same therapist and after I was diagnosed, and it really helped me through that stage. I feel like I had somebody that I could talk to that would understand and that wouldn't judge me. I feel like also reaching out to people in the community can be really helpful. If you enjoy making videos and stuff and you think that maybe making a YouTube channel would be fun, definitely do that, because that is a way that I found to cope with my diagnosis and stuff. I just found it really cathartic to talk about it with other people and to like put it out there into the world. It's really cool to see the community grow. I feel like I'm actually doing something good with something bad that happened to me. So I feel like that's a really good way to transform a bad thing into a good thing. So think about anything that you can do that might help other people in the same situation as you, if that's like your thing, because it can be really, really cathartic and really like transformative to see you turn that pain and that bad experience into a way to make that experience easier for other people. You can also like look for support groups, or find other things that might be not specifically like for fibromyalgia or for depression. It might be just like a meetup of people who enjoy books, or people who enjoy stationery or pop culture or whatever, like doing things that you like and that are sometimes outside of this whole like chronic illness realm can be really, really helpful. So I enjoy books, I enjoy makeup, I enjoy vintage fashion, I enjoy pop culture, I like going to Comic-Con, I like doing cosplay, watching anime, Japanese culture. All of this stuff gives me other things to think about, other ways to fill my time that are not me constantly thinking about the illness and like how shitty it is to have it. If it gets you into a new hobby or into something new, then it's really helpful. I just think it can be a catalyst. So that's kind of been helpful to me because it keeps me happy on like a regular basis. And then when I have a depressive flare, I know that I'm not doing anything wrong, and I know that it's just chemical. So it helps me to know where it comes from, and it might be helpful to you to think about that as well. Last part of the video is I'm going to tell you about how I deal with it and what I do when I'm in the depressive flare. Step one is you wake up and you feel terrible. Think about first if this is emotional or if this is like more chemical. So if you can't figure out why you feel this way, it's probably just your brain short-circuiting, which is a helpful step. You have to figure out where it comes from to be able to do something about it and how you handle it. Or this is all my opinion, obviously, but like how I handle my flares depends on what caused my flares. So because I tend to have more chemical ones, I've learned through trial and error, a lot of trial and mostly error, I don't do well with pressuring myself to do something that I like. Because I can't find joy in doing things, because I don't enjoy anything, because I am depressed. What I try to do is I try to put on like comfy clothes, things that I'm comfortable in, nothing that like bothers me or annoys me. I try to still stick to my like schedule, mostly like try to still get up and get out of bed. I try to still drink as much water as I'm supposed to be drinking and try to still eat like I'm supposed to be eating. I will indulge in whatever foods I feel like eating if that's what I feel like doing. Anything that's gonna make me feel better is a good thing, so I can't feel like this and then still say no to myself. I will indulge if I feel like it, but I don't always feel like it. So if I don't feel like eating anything specific, I try to just eat things that I already know that I like and that are easy to make and that are just simple. Try to simplify as much as I possibly can. I will tell people around me who need to know that I'm feeling like this, mostly my mom and my boyfriend. I will tell them that I'm in a depressive flare and that I'm not feeling so great. And if I'd absolutely need company, then I will ask one of them to come and keep me company. Otherwise, I prefer to stay alone most of the time because I just feel terrible and I just want to cry and I don't want somebody watching that. I think about like, what do I feel like doing? Which sometimes is absolutely nothing, but my idea and my way to cope with it is I avoid forcing myself to do things that make me happy, that's gonna cheer me up, because it kind of like feels forced and it sometimes just doesn't work and it will make me have like resent that thing. It depends also how bad it is. Like sometimes I'll have them where it's super, super bad. Like I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to do anything and I just want to cry. And it's just there's like levels of how bad I can feel. I'll put something on TV that is interesting or funny or that will keep me concentrating on that. Something that's easy to watch. So this time was Jane the Virgin, which is a series on Netflix, which is pretty like soap opera-y and funny and stuff. And even though I wasn't laughing out loud, but it did make me forget about how I was feeling because I was immersed in the storyline and stuff and the characters and stuff. So I wasn't really paying attention to how I was feeling, and it kind of makes the time go by faster. That's kind of my key to this, is just keep myself busy until it goes away, because it's gonna go away. It's gonna be maybe 2 days, 3, 4, 5, but it's gonna go away. So I just have to wait it out. And the way that I wait it out is really important because it can make me feel better or feel worse. I try to just keep myself distracted without the actual weight and pressure of like cheering myself up. I just try to do things to keep myself busy and not trying to do things to enjoy them or anything like that. Because I feel like that puts too much pressure on me to enjoy those things, and if I'm not enjoying them, then I'm somehow doing this wrong, and then I feel guilty about not enjoying things that I normally enjoy. And you're already in a bad mental space, so you don't want to make it worse. I just focus on keeping myself busy. I don't want to have fun. I don't want to enjoy. I just want to be busy. I just want time to keep going. I watch TV or I watch YouTube videos or I read. Most of the time I read. I'll sleep if I want to or if I can. I will maybe go for a walk if that's what I feel like doing, or go to the library. That's something that I sometimes gets me distracted, not always, but whilst I'm there, I feel a little bit better. If I'm in the mood for that, or if I feel like it will help, I might go to the aquarium, which is one of my favorite places on the planet, the bookstore, or the stationery store or whatever, and like look at stuff or look at the, you know, merch for Harry Potter or for whatever. I might go to the cinema. I do try not to make purchases, but it doesn't always work. But I try not to make like major decisions. I don't decide to do or not do anything. I will make a purchase or two, but normally it's like things that I've been meaning to get for a long time, and I just need that extra little push. But I don't really find that that's super helpful, because then things don't arrive the next day. They're gonna arrive like maybe a week later, maybe 3. It depends on what I'm feeling, but I try to restrain myself and not go too crazy. I cuddle this little guy most of the time because he helps me feel better and just like nicer. I do some cross stitching if I'm in the mood for that. Research things or look through Pinterest. It's really not that exciting. Like, I'll play games on my phone or on my iPad. I just try to make time go by. Generally just try to like not make a big deal out of it, because I feel like if I think too much about why I'm feeling this way and how I feel, it's gonna make me sad and it's gonna make it worse. And if I think too much about like trying to force myself to feel better, it's just going to stress me out more and give me more anxiety about feeling depressed. So I feel like since I started accepting it and being like, okay, depression, do your thing, I'm just gonna hang out here and like keep myself busy until you go away, I feel like it just makes it easier to pass, and it makes it easier to deal with. It's not easy, it's just less hard. Something that really helps me sometimes is just clean and to organize and to tidy up and reorganize a space, because it makes it feel like it just helps me process. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it just helps me move and feel a little bit better. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it helps me. This advice that I'm giving you of like, don't really think about it and forget about it, is only if, like me, you're having these flare-ups and they're more chemical and more like your brain short-circuiting than anything else. Because if they're very emotional and if they're triggered by like your boss is really nasty to you, or you're having some kind of like, or you have a dysfunctional relationship or something else that is wrong, then obviously by no means do not just pretend it's not happening. I don't think that's healthy at all. But if it's just your brain, like wires getting crossed, like it is in my case, I just try to like make it through and I'll feel better. That is everything that I wanted to talk about today. If you have any questions or anything that you want to talk about, leave it in the comments and I will be happy to respond, to reply. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave it a like and a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel if you have not done that already. That is everything that I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!